What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Bludborn, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the raid that came out with War of Three Peaks and the Lord of the Rings Online, Amdan Dammul, otherwise known as the Bloody Threshold. Now before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and follow me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/Bludborn so you get all those notifications of when I go live and post new content in the future. Alright, so War of Three Peaks has been out for a little over a month now, and people have been in all different tiers of the raid. The Tier 4 Leading the Charge deed became available on November 5th, and we're looking at a release of Tier 5 in the near future. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to hop in here and talk a little bit about raiding as a whole, while you actually see some of the footage from a Tier 1 run that I did recently. Now, it's very important to note that a big deal with raiding in this game up until this point was that Tier 1 was looked at as kind of an entry, but was still had a little bit of a challenge to it for a lot of players. Now, the hardcore raidingkins and stuff like that would typically blow past Tier 1 and not even worry about it, unless there was some type of progression or deed that was associated with it to get maybe a mount or an emote or something like that. This has been a little bit more solidified with this update in that Tier 1 has been clearly defined as a story mode that the vast majority of the population should be able to accomplish fairly easily, as long as you have still, people paying attention to what they're doing. Tier 2 is the old Tier 1, so it actually has more mechanics usually, and things are a little bit more on par with the old traditional, like, this is the beginning of the raiding scene. And then it kind of shifts on up from there. So Tier 3 becomes the old Tier 2. And that, I think, makes more sense if you think about it, because now you actually have something that more people can actually get a taste of what raiding is like, doing larger scale group content and seeing if it's something that they maybe want to do, or verify that, no, this is not my cup of tea. So I'm glad that Tier 1 is actually easier so that more people can experience it. I'm sure there's people out there that will still disagree with that and think that it's too easy, but to be honest, that's kind of the intent. And you're still going to see those progression kins, the hardcore kins that are going to be pushing for Tier 4 and Tier 5 completions. Now, this is a little bit shorter of a raid too. Shorter in the amount of things that you have to do, but some of the drama or dialogue that happens in it does tend to draw it out, kind of like House of Lamentation, where there's not as much stuff to do, but you are waiting for a lot of dialogue to happen and on-screen stuff. So it generally will take you around 30 minutes or so to do a Tier 1 run. And that's assuming that you have people that maybe have some experience in there. Maybe you don't have the best gear and things like that, but you should probably give yourself about a half hour to 45 minutes to do just a pickup group out of the world chat Tier 1 run of Bloody Threshold. And just kind of an overview of what this raid is. It is kind of the culmination of the War of Three Peaks. It's described as the final battle of the War of Three Peaks, where Prince Durin and the Longbeards, they are bringing all the dwarves up and basically fighting at the gates of Mount Gundabad. As with a lot of the raids that have happened in the past, if you do the content that is part of it, it is tied into the story, culminating in the raid. And the way that the War of Three Peaks was done, it ties into the missions and ties into the epic and all that stuff. So from that standpoint, it was actually pretty well done from the story standpoint, and they left you on a pretty giant cliffhanger, which if you want to see through all the way to the end of the video, you will see what that is if it's not something you've experienced in the past. So there is a little bit of a spoiler at the end, also being a cliffhanger, so be prepared for that. Once you see the raid completed on here, if you don't want to see what that is, just stop it at that point. Now, actually getting into the content of the raid itself, pretty straightforward. There's a lot of mobs that are leading up to the actual courtyard in which you fight both bosses. So you're going to see typical things like the Gundabad Assassins, Gundabad Captains, Defilers, Heavers, Sappers, Ward Riders, Trolls. Now there's a couple things that you watch out for. Again, being on the tier 1, it's not a huge issue. Tier 1 again is kind of designed to teach you some of those raid mechanics. While they're not overly harsh on people, if you don't pay attention to them, things can still kill you. So just be mindful of that. There are poisons and wounds that can still do a fair amount of damage if you're not paying attention, or if you're under geared, it can still do a lot of damage to you. So keep an eye out for those things. But again, nothing earth-shattering until you get into some of the upper tiers of this particular raid. Now, once you get actually into the final courtyard, you basically are going to stay there the rest of the time fighting the two encounters, really. So the first one you're going to run into is Bardhrukh the Killbeast. And this is kind of an interesting thing on tier 1 because all it is a couple of waves of, some mammoths, some bats. You want to keep the bats interrupted because they're going to be throwing bombs out at people. And really, that's all there is to this phase. And then you really have the Killbeast that comes out, and really you just keep him interrupted. And quite honestly, you can just keep him targeted. And if you have a lot of AoE in your group, which we did in this example, really you can just keep him targeted and just keep AoEing off of the main boss. Now, waves of the mammoths and the bats will continue to spawn throughout the duration of this fight. In most cases, what you'll see is a lot of groups will just kind of group up in the center. They'll let all the mobs kind of come in onto where the tank is holding the boss and just AoE off of that. So quite honestly, that's all you have to do in this one. Keep him interrupted, interrupt the bats, and kill him. Take him down. Now, the next portion of the encounter is actually broken down into two different phases. The first phase, you're actually going to fight Gorgar on the back of Ránulur. During that fight, after you're about halfway done, Gorgar will actually leave and you will fight Ránulur by himself, and he will reset his health at that point. Now, during phase 1, a random party member in the raid will get a yellow eye above their head. It is actually the javelin throw from Gorgar. And you have a few seconds before it's thrown, and the best thing that you can do is actually take that eye, move it out of the group at a good distance. You can kind of see here in the actual video about how big that red square of fire is. Once the fire is dropped, you can go ahead and come back in. What you want to avoid doing is missing the eye, dropping the fire, having everybody kind of grouped up and everybody's taking unnecessary damage. So ideally, back out when you get that. If you're using the Prime plugin, you will actually see when it is targeting you. You'll actually see a chat spam, and you'll see an icon that pops up and tells you that you have who has the eye. So if you are on comms, you can help people as well and do some extra callouts. That's really all you need to do on this phase. There are a couple removables that you can do as far as some wounds and fears and things like that you can remove. Not a huge deal. The biggest deal in this phase is just not dropping the fire in the group. Once it is dropped, come back in and keep fighting. Now, after Gorgar leaves and you're fighting Ránulur by himself again, he will periodically spawn waves of his little warg babies. Those guys are going to come out at random doors throughout the encounter. Now, there is a call out for these, and you'll see when they come in. On tier 1, easy enough, just let them come into the boss. And if you want to help out your single target DPS by having a target assist up on this one, go ahead. In this one, we had the target assist up, not hugely necessary because the AoE was taking them down fairly quickly. That's all there really is to this particular phase. So at this point, you've completed the raid on tier 1. Like I said, there is some additional drama that happens after this and some additional dialogue. So if you don't want to see that until you experience it for yourself, you can go ahead and end the video here. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and let this play out so you guys can see that. Again, thank you guys all for watching these videos. I really appreciate it. I love having you guys in the live streams checking stuff out. And please let me know what you guys think of these videos. And I will be back with more content in the future.
Well done, heroes! Was that all you could muster, Gorgar? You have lost! Surrender now!
What a disappointment. All right! Fun's over, boys. Time to finish this.
Dishonorable cur!
Archers, take aim!
Shields up!
Ready? Oh, did you forget about the rest of us, Orc?
Too easy.
Ha ha! The day is ours! Rush the gate! For Gundabad!
Oh no. That sounded like... What? Not now! I was so close! Orcs, retreat! Get inside the mountain!
This isn't over, Gorgar!
Oh, you're right about that, little princeling.
Everyone, get off the ramparts!
Scatter, vermin!
How can this be?
I have returned to claim what is mine! Bow down before the true master of Gundabad!
No, we were so close! Our prize slips from our grasp once more. All is not lost, my prince.
Aye, we could see the battle's ending from across the bridge. May the Slakeless lead our forces to victory!
The orcs flee back to the mountain! The field is ours!
You are right, Commander. All is not lost. It will take time to regroup, tend to the wounded, and break through this cursed ice. But the day is won. Gundabad will be ours!